Hi everyone, today's May 26th, 2018, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelists. My name is Green Ranger.
And I'm Deck Tech.
And this is a week where we got the new box on Monday, or was it last Monday? I forget. But we're in a completely new meta, a very unsettled meta, with a lot of random decks running around. There's still, the top tier decks that you see every so often, but things are a bit confusing, and things are about to get more confusing for next month. So, Tech, how are you doing?
Well, I'm still on vacation, so playtime has been kind of limited. You would think that vacation means you could play more. We're busy.
Real life vacation.
Right. Yeah.
Not a digital vacation.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So we're checking out the sites and eating and whatnot. So I haven't played a ton. But I did get up to Legend 1 on 35 PvP wins, mostly with the Amazonas. So I'm doing okay. I almost got to Legend 2, but was turned away by a weird Ninjas deck. It didn't even seem good, but it was just like, I was dumb, and I didn't read the cards, and I didn't exactly know what some of the cards did, because it's Ninjas, and I never know what any of the cards do, and so I just misplayed because I wasn't paying the best attention. So I guess I'm this week's third-rate duelist.
Was they the Karakuri ninjas or the old ones?
No, it was like the old ones. I just should have been. It was a different. It played a little differently than the old deck did, but it was similar enough that I should have recognized it. But even back when that deck was popular, it wasn't like hugely popular in PvP because it was kind of expensive and a little bit hard to play, I guess. So. It was just something I wasn't familiar with, so I kind of messed up. But we'll see. I still have a couple days left, obviously, in the month. We're going to be on a plane for pretty much one entire day, so I'm not going to be able to play that day. But I haven't given up on King of Games yet. Hopefully I'll get a little bit of time to play some more games and do my Shark Boy Lava Girl meme for the end of the month. How about you? How are you doing?
Yeah, I've been all over Legends. In fact, I was almost King of Games. I just had to win one more game, and then I couldn't do it. And, yeah, I'm back in Legend 1 as a direct reason, because I lost that game. Yeah, I've been playing different...
You lost it so hard that it kicked you from...
Yeah, like, I didn't have the will to win my Legend 2 demotion match, so I went back to Legend 1. That's just how it went. And I mostly played the new Samurai decks, actually. I got one Grandmaster Samurai from the pack, and some of the other N's and R's. And then I mostly played the 30-card version this week, but the climb to King of Games was the 20. And it wasn't a good version because I only had one Grandmaster, and you probably need at least 2 or 3. Probably need at least 2 there. But, yeah.
I tried that a little bit as well. And, sorry, we got some people walking by. The loud baby. The glories of vacation streaming, or recording. But, I tried it out a little bit as well. Of course, I just love to spend all of my gems as soon as I can. So I bought a bunch of packs and ended up with not enough to build the deck, so now I'm back on low gems and have nothing extra to show for it, so that's why I'm still playing the same decks.
Yeah. I bought a lot of Blades of Spirits, so I have like the SR, I think they're UR and SR Samurais. So I have the setup for them, so that's why I decided to do it, but I just need one more Grandmaster to actually make it, I think. And another note, I actually faced Miltum25 yesterday, our Twitter follower. I wasn't sure if it was him at first, but then after confirmation it was. He was playing, he already got King of Games, so he's trying to do it on like a free-to-play account. So it's like, that's what the pros do, get King of Games multiple times. And, I switched over to a Blackluster Soldier deck last night, because I'm back in Legend 1, so I was like, whatever. And I won the game, but yeah, it's cool to run into someone.
Yeah, that doesn't happen very much with this game because we have so many players and you can play people from
It's more
different
worldwide. Yeah.
regions. Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Yep. All right. So this week in esports, Duel Links Meta Championship Series 9 was announced, and this one is actually not that far from 8. 9 was announced for June 2nd, 1 p.m. Um, After the last MCS, I think there was some, I don't know if you want to call it controversy or disputes about how the tournaments were run, but he was trying to follow how Magic the Gathering runs their official TCG formats, and there's some kind of simulator about saying how many rounds of Swiss you need to actually determine who advances, and he determined it was 7 rounds. So 7 rounds, where all of the X-2 players make the cut. So anyone with 2 losses or less will move up to the next round of Swiss. It's still going to be 1 deck and 5 side cards in the deck, side deck cards. He talked about before not having side deck cards to emulate the official Konami tournament, but I guess they're sticking with it.
Yeah, it seemed like his people kind of liked it with the side deck, so we still have had very little, like, by the way, of official Duel Links tournaments and everything anyway, so it's fair to assume that perhaps the format for official tournaments is still up in the air anyway. So you might as well do it the way that your people like it.
Yeah. I don't know if they were doing 7 rounds before. I think that is a new thing because it's something they might have done more before because they tried to make it so they don't go as long because people are competing from Japan and they're staying up all night to play in the MCS. So things like that, I guess.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Duel Links Meta Weekly 21. This happened on Tuesday. Let's see. First place, Nyx. Amazonas. It's pretty much the same. Well, it's not the same list. There's no, burn cards in it, except for the Swordswoman. But there is an Amazonas Scouts. That's the first time we've seen this card in Amazonas. And, there's, like, things like Chalice and Super Rush, which you typically don't see in the deck, I think.
Yeah, Super Rush is a little bit less common. He's running 2 of the Baby Tiger, which I'm seeing a lot of people cutting that to 1 or 0. I'm personally only running 1. And another weird thing is that he's running the 1 Treacherous Trap Hole. Right, Treacherous Trap Hole works even though the deck has a lot of key traps because I guess we're running more banish effects instead of destroy effects for our back row removal these days. So it's interesting to see it because most decks that are running it are only running like 1 or maybe 2 traps, and usually it's this card and maybe another copy of it. So it's interesting to see it in another deck where you're definitely going to see the other traps, and then you're just kind of hoping that they don't get destroyed before the time that you can play the trap.
Yeah, I think the reason I didn't advance to King of Games was because of Amazonas, and I only have 1 Cosmic Cyclone, so I couldn't banish the Onslaught, so that's why I lost most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. Second place, NA. NA played Masked Heroes, and this is a very typical version, 21 card version. A lot of the one-of certain quick plays, like Chalice and Offerings to Doomed and Econ. 2 Treacherous Trap Holes as removal, though.
Yeah. And, of course, this is one of those decks where those are the only traps in the deck.
Third place, Tristan P. Grass is Greener Spellbooks. This is a spellbook with 2 Trickies, and only 2 of the Spellbook Magicians of Prophecy. I don't know if it's a budget thing or if it's a new development.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I would assume it's more likely a budget thing, but it could very well be a design choice. You don't normally would see it maybe replace one of the spellbook library of the Crescent, because that's kind of the weakest of the spellbooks, and he's running 3 right now. But who knows?
And Miltstein, Misteltein or something. Amazonas. Amazonas, traditional list. No burn cards. Typically just use the Onslaught. It has the 2 Offerings to the Doomed. And Arthur Duder in the side deck. 2 Arthur Duders.
Yeah, I liked this Arthur Duder. When you pointed it out, it's a pretty interesting tech, because what you can do, so this is one of the Noble Arms from the new set. It's just an R, so you probably got it fairly easily. I'll have to check it out and see if I have it. But you can only equip it to a warrior type, which is fine, because those are your Amazonas. And once per turn, you can target 1 set card, monster or spell trap, and the equipped monster loses exactly 500 attack. I don't know why it says exactly, but loses 500 attack, and if it does, destroy that target. So it affects monsters and spells and traps, which is awesome. And you equip it to your Amazonuses because they're warriors, so that's fine. And then it works with the what is it called? The Amazonas Swordswoman, because you don't care how low her attack gets. In fact, if it's lower, it's better. It helps you out. You deal more damage to your opponent. So it's versatile removal that also synergizes with the rest of your deck. And I really like it. I think I'm going to try it out in my build.
Yeah. It kind of reduces the need of the massive morphs, I guess, and stuff like that.
Yeah, massive morph. I cut it pretty early on, like we were talking about before, so I like this much better. Massive Morph didn't synergize as well with the rest of the deck, and it wasn't nearly as versatile, where you pretty much only used it when you wanted to combo off with the Swordswoman and kill them maybe for like a OTK. It didn't have nearly as much applicability as the Duder.
Yeah, the few times I actually beat Amazonas, I use Wall of D on other, like, not a swordswoman, I guess the princess, and that's how they lose like 2,000, and I hit him again for 2,000, that's how I win. And Arthur Duder just destroys Wall of D, like any card that can't be activated before.
Yeah, that's definitely a real problem with the deck that I have sometimes, where I'll have the queen out because that's like my power play, but then they'll make my guys weaker, or they'll summon a really big guy so that they can continually attack into a weak target, and obviously avoiding the queen or something, or if they have piercing, it's really bad. So that this could help with that.
Alright. The Duel Links Challenger Series 13 happened, and I believe this happened before the new box was released, so these are some of the older cards, the old meta, if you will. First place, Exiled Walrus. This is Grass is Greener Spellbooks. This one runs Monster Gate, though. And it has a Red-Eye Zombie Dragon in the sideboard for some reason.
Yeah, we saw a little bit of Monster Gate. I think Decade had it in his initial version of the deck, but we haven't seen it a ton since then. It works much better you only run in the Grass is Greener version, and that might be part of the reason, because we're seeing a lot more people switching to the 20-card version. But obviously the plan is that you play one of your blue boys, and then you Monster Gate it into hopefully one of your more powerful, the Prophecy Destroyer or the Reaper of Prophecy. But even the Fool of Prophecy is like an okay hit, because it's still an upgrade to your blue boy, and then you just have hopefully a couple spellbooks into your graveyard from doing it. So it's kind of like your fourth copy of Grassland Screener.
Second place, Jay Dizzle, 21 card Grit Sylvans. Not much to say here. They have Treacherous Trap Hole, I guess, as a 21st card. Same monster composition. Traps and spells. Yep.
Yeah.
Third place, Kingsman, Amazonas. This one has Amazonas Fighter, which is a card I have seen in Ladder a lot. and it's a problem for me. And 2 onslaughts.
Yeah, 2 onslaughts is interesting because that's what I'm working with, and I wonder if it's because he couldn't find it too. That seems unlikely, um, or if he specifically chose it. And so I'm assuming that he specifically chose it, and that's kind of cool.
And Fetty Guap, 3rd place. We saw him last week with Dark Magician of Chaos spellbooks, and this is the same deck appears.
Cool. Good for him.
Alright. So a big news item that was kind of under the radar was the June 2018 Ranked Duels update. And this was a really big deal. I didn't notice it until like 3 yesterday, I think. And you didn't notice that at all, well, because you're on vacation. But they should have made a bigger deal out of it. Actually, I only heard of it from going to our channel's YouTube. I saw a video on it. from
Yeah.
Brades. Brades reported it, and I was like, "Whoa, when did this happen?" But anyways, the new rule is that ranked duels will have 5,000 life points instead of 4,000. Biggest rule change in Duel Links. It's possible it stays after this month. It's going to be a trial month, the whole month for ranked duels, and it could stay forever. I don't know, but it's important to note that the WCS games and also dual room duels and casual duels, all the things, will be 4,000. So tournaments will still be 4,000, and this may change. What, like the tournament decks you follow might not be good for the ladder anymore.
Yeah, the formats are becoming more and more different between the two. So, like you said, fewer things will kind of carry over, perhaps. It's only 1 month, so it might not kind of fully come to fruition, these differences, but it is a pretty big change. It has a lot of implications on kind of just the game generally and a lot of specific cards.
Yeah. So, I guess one way is to look at this life point change is it's a general nerf to all one-turn kill decks. There haven't been any nerfs lately to the decks, but obviously with more life points you're going to survive the one-turn kill hits that you normally take, and it's like almost every deck has grit built in, almost, and a grit that will always activate. And meta decks that are susceptible to losing the one-turn kills, like Archfiends, Sylvans, Amazonists, they get better. Even decks like Sea Stealth, I think, Sea Stealth attack, they get helped by these changes. And you're saying that burn decks are harder to play as well because of the life point change.
Yeah, it's the same overall idea. More life points obviously means that each burn spell is comparatively weaker than it was before. So even though we can see control decks have more time to get you down, they also will now, if they're burn style, require more resources to get you down. So they either need to make it a stall burn, which of course we've seen several times over in the game's history, or they'll have to do like a deck out burn, a deck out stall thing, or some other form of control where they kill you like in a normal way, but they're just have a little bit more life points to play with and control tools to do so. But those are just kind of, it's similar more to the one-turn kill or combo type decks where you have a very narrow range of how they can work, and now it's going to be a little harder to make that happen.
Is it just me, or is it every control deck in Yu-Gi-Oh really annoying? Like, in Duel Links, at least. Like, is there a control deck that can be, like, acceptable?
Yeah.
Cloud Control, maybe? That was close? Yeah.
Right. The ones that I didn't think were as annoying were kind of the mid-range control decks, but those were, like, the first decks that were called control, where you would use Sergeant Electros and just, like, mirror wall, I guess, at the time originally, and just kind of try to make value plays throughout the game while slowly locking them down with Sergeant Electros. I like that one more than some of the other stuff, but I think the more fun versions of control for both players, or definitely for the player who's receiving it, I think, but also for me as the one who's controlling the game, I prefer control decks that destroy things instead of
Keeping
remove resources. And in Yu-Gi-Oh, because we have such limited resources, especially in Duel Links, where we only have 3 slots for monsters, 3 slots for spell trap zone, and then the 1 field, of course, it's a lot easier to lock down those resources. And I think that's the least fun form of control decks,
Right.
and that's kind of the ones that this game format breeds. But
yeah.
oh well.
I guess I misspoke. The Amazoness is kind of control. Dinosaurs were control, and I'd say yugiohs are control too, sort of. Like, I didn't think about them that way, but I guess they are. Yeah.
Yeah, so those are more like the mid-rangey type control decks. I like those ones a little more than like what we normally think of, and the reason why you said it that way is because when we think of control and Duel Links, we're thinking of like
Lava
massive morphs and lava golems and stuff.
Yeah. Oh well, we'll see.
Yeah.
It also helps general life point spenders. 4,000 to 5,000 is big for the ones that spend 2,000 because, obviously you can't activate the ones that spend 2,000 twice when you have 4,000. So now you can fit 2 of those cards in. Things like Mirror Wall, you could last for 2 turns, which is really good. Ties of the Brethren, you could play 2, and Solemn Scolding. Cosmic Cyclone was probably the most common 1,000 life point spender, so you could play more of those. And Steel Swarms, you mentioned too.
Yeah, I was just going through seeing if I could add anything to this list, and you're right, the 2,000 are kind of the most impactful because it makes it so that you can play an extra copy or an extra payment of 2,000 without need to gain life. But also, I just noticed that the Steel Swarms have like those life payments as part of their costs and how they play, and maybe when they didn't see as much play as the devs wanted, then this might have been another consideration. Like maybe they get slightly better. I don't think that that's probably a major consideration of theirs, but it might have gone into it.
Cyberstein. Now we're going into the meme area. Cyberstein. Any character running life point boost. So Alpha will be 6,000, Beta 7,000, Gamma 8,000. They can play Cyberstein without playing Taya, Life Quest 0 Taya. So there's surprise deck building factors for any big fusions you would not normally play.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I don't. It's probably not going to be tier 1 or anything, but Cyberstein was one of the best cards ever in the TCG. And so, well, at least back when I played it was. I don't know how much power creep has changed that, but it is a little bit sad that it never really saw play in Duel Links except through like memes and stuff. So, I don't know. I'm very much open to it possibly getting a second chance at life.
Card of the Soul. This is a card you normally saw with regular Red Eyes Black Dragon and Nephis, because they added up to 4,000. Their attack and defense added up to 4,000. Now that's going to be changed to 5,000. So, basically what this means is the monsters are bigger for Card of the Soul.
Yeah, I'm going to have to...
There's a list.
I didn't take a look. Yeah, I didn't take a look to see what's on the list, but could be interesting. We could see some shifts in deck building there, at least for this 1 month if it doesn't stick around. It'd be really interesting to see what you can tutor out and how that changes how the games play.
Yep. Aramiges. It doesn't really help Aramiges in any way, but they rely on having a life point lead, and when you have more life points in your tank, you have more chances to come back and gain them back. So it gives them more of a comeback mechanism, if you will.
Yeah, and sorry to let's go back, but I thought of it. The answer is Archfiend Emperor. That one has 5,000.
Right.
And I think that's going to be the single most important
I think
one.
Empress does too, right?
Maybe. That would be
because
fair.
that's a common card you see in that deck.
She does, yeah. Hers are a little bit weirder, but they add up. So I think that might be the deck that gets to play Card of the Soul.
Archfiends are already so good. Like, I feel like I lose to them all the time.
Yeah, they're definitely one of those decks that I think is underrepresented in the meta, and I think it's because they're kind of expensive, and uh, if they were to, if it was just based on play power level, then they would see a lot more play.
Yep. So arrow mages maybe get into a lower tier, and psychics. They obviously use life as a resource, so this could only help them. More psychokinesis, more other cards that destroy things like Destructitron or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
Alright. The main PvE event this week was Tristan, and it's to appease everyone playing this game. You could finally face Tristan in Duel World. And unlike the show where he pretends to be a duelist until he loses his soul and he admits he loses his body. He loses his body and he admits he didn't teach Joey how to duel. He admits he's a phony the whole time. He doesn't admit to being a real duelist.
Womp womp.
Yep. So, to farm him, I used Ojamas. Because all he tries to do is use A-Forces and Battle Guards, I think. And the monsters don't get too powerful. They're in the low 2000s, I'd say. And you try to lock down his board so the A-Forces doesn't... Because the A-Forces works best when you have 3 monsters on the board. So try to lock down the board. And then your Ojama Blues help you draw faster. Fuse 2 monsters, play Vassal, Union Attack, Secret Pass, and Ojama Country. So that'll work pretty good.
Yeah, I had a similar idea. Like you said, his guys don't get huge, and I've done it. I farmed him a good number of times now. I never looked up his deck or anything, but I just decided to try Lab Builder, and it worked, and it's been working. So all of this is mostly verified through my experience, but as far as I can tell, he cannot attack through the Labyrinth wall. So basically... he also has no way of disrupting your back row or your attack. So basically all you have to do is fill your deck with draw and then use your favorite finisher. So right now I'm using Sword and Shield plus Vassal plus Union Attack, but you could do, any setup that you want. The downside, of course, is that you have to run Paradox Bros if you're going to run Lab Builder, but it seems almost impossible to lose with Lab Builder because he can't attack through it, he can't disrupt you. All you have to do is draw through your deck faster than he does.
Yep. Alright. Let's go through his new cards. This card... So an old card's Panther Warrior that was obtainable through Battle City and also through him. This is a new one, Yugioh Friendship. It's a normal spell. Offer your opponent a handshake. If they accept your handshake, each player's life points become half the combined life points of both players. If you have Unity in your hand and show it to your opponent, they must accept the handshake. Have you actually seen this played against you? Because I don't know what shows up. Is it yes and no, or how does that work? I don't know.
I have not seen it played against me because, why? Why would they? But
I played it against someone on casual, and they accepted it. So I don't know what shows up.
Well, that's nice. We could do we'll have to do a friendly battle or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Test it out.
But basically, there's a cutscene where there's a handshake, and then you average your life points. I think that's what the effect is. Yep. Millennium Shield. 5-star 0-3000 warrior. So it's basically a Labyrinth Wall, except it doesn't come with the skill, and that's the only time you would play the card. So that's where this is.
Yeah, it's pretty much useless. I could see some meme deck developing, but I don't think it'd be any good.
And apparently we did not get the McDonald's artwork, which this card was... There's a bunch of cards that were released from McDonald's, which kind of shows you what the obesity problem was, but they had much better artwork than this one, the one that we got here.
That's interesting. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, I remember those. Those are the McDonald's promo cards, and there were certain ones like Goddess of the Third Eye, I believe. Some of those fusion cards. Really bad cards.
Well, the Millennium Shield doesn't really have great art anyway.
It probably was OP when it was released with the McDonald's cards, because I don't think Labyrinth Wall was out back then. So it was probably the highest defense card around at the time.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
It was like early on in the game that might have been decent enough to see play. Probably not.
It would have died
probably
to
still.
It would have died to Fissure because it has 0 attack.
Yeah. There you go. Fissure 'em. We had just normal Trap Hole.
Right.
Regeki, of course, and Dark Hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think that would have been a winning strategy anyway. But whatever.
Berserk Gorilla SR 2000 1000 Earth Beast. If this card is in face-up defense, destroy it. This card must attack if able. This is a mechanic you see in a lot of games. Like, I think Magic. There's certain cards that always have to attack. And it's kind of like Dark Elf, but unfortunately everyone runs Econ, so this gets destroyed with Econ, so yeah.
Yeah, this card was actually... So this one takes me back. I don't know exactly when it came out or whatever, but in one of my earlier decks, between the time that I first picked up the game and was just playing whatever random stuff, and then towards the end when I got really serious, this was in the middle when I was running my first Unga Bunga decks and whatever. This one was definitely in it. It was a budget choice card at my card shop, and it was an okay card. There were a lot more spells and traps, and of course you still had limited space in your deck, so Econ was good but not as prevalent as it is here, and so I think it was better. And there was no one ever played Windstorm or any of those other Curse of Anubis. The cards that are sometimes played in Duel Links that were never played in the TCG at the time. So I think the card was a little better in the TCG than it is here, which is interesting because it's just an individual solo just stats. It's not a card that got better because of synergies or anything. It just got better because other cards that countered it were not as common.
Yeah, I don't think I ever even saw an Econ, like a paper copy of an Econ ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there was a card like Zumbira the Dark, which is 4-star 2100, and I would just play that, and I could just destroy things for a few turns. I remember, and no one could do anything about it. So
yeah,
similar card.
Good stuff.
Battle Guard Rage. This is probably his best card. It's a continuous trap. Activate this card by targeting one warrior you control. It gains 1000 attack. Monsters destroyed by battle with it are returned to the hand instead of going to the graveyard. When that monster leaves the field, destroy this card. Yeah, so it's like a regular equip spell because they get 1000, but bouncing them to the hand, it works against Powerful Rebirth. I think that's the best card it goes against, but typically you would want to destroy them instead of sending them back, I think, right?
Yeah, for the most part. It also has slight hand clogging ability, but that's kind of, since you get to choose which ones you're discarding instead of in Hearthstone where it blocks you from drawing more, that's not really a benefit. So I think for the most part it's just a combat trick version of an equip spell, which is okay. Probably not worth seeing too much play unless there's a really niche combo synergy thing that we're not catching at this time.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of those chain cards. It's like Kunai with chain, Blast of chain, but it does more than those, I guess, with worse ability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it could help. There's a couple cards that need to be played as the second or third card in a chain, so I don't know. Maybe those ones are slightly better if you have a trap effect instead of your normal equip speed is just like a normal magic. But I think the main thing is just that you get to attack, and then they don't know that you're going to have a 1,000 boost to your attacker. So
you got Super Robo Lady and Super Robo Yaru. These are kind of like the first fusions where you fuse something for 1,200 attack. Robo Lady increases by 1,000 when it attacks directly, so it becomes a 2,200 after it hits the opponent directly. Robo Yaru is a little better. Increase the attack of this monster by 1,000 during the damage step when it battles a monster. So it's for all purposes, it's a 2200 whenever it gets hit or hits something. So, yeah, they're not good.
No.
So, but they're iconic with him, so that's why they're there.
Yeah. It's
And,
like obviously you would never do a fusion for 2200, so
yeah.
unless it has like a really good effect, and these don't because the effect is what makes it 2200. So.
Yep. And Voltic Kong, 4-star, light beast, 1800, 1000. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, send one card from the top of your opponent's deck to the graveyard for each face-up light monster you control. So this is, you just think about this as a 4-star 1800 beast. Beast and light don't really mix, so the ability is probably not going to activate too much. That's just what it is.
Yeah, but it's a decent ability. I still don't think it's going to see play because the game has gotten to the point where decent cards aren't good enough. You need everything needs to be OP to see play. So this card seems like decent, but that's it needs like support and it needs a specific deck for it really to be worth playing.
Yeah, it's just an auto duel card, pretty much.
Yeah.
Little Wingard, Robo Yaru, Robo Lady, and Cyber Commander are the other cards you are getting. So that's it.
There you go.
Alright. But yeah, I'm glad that we actually got to play against Tristan. It's something that I clamored for a lot, and they acted on it. I think Duke's next. I think there are some leaks about Duke coming to the game. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
His voice thing. There was some line about his voice. Enjoy his voice in the game. Does he have good voice lines or something? I almost always play without sound on, so I have no idea.
I don't know how this works, because I didn't see it happen. But apparently when he plays a monkey card, he starts like screeching like a monkey. Because he's like possessed by a monkey or something.
He has played the monkey card against me.
Oh, I never saw it. Maybe it's like a level 30.
Oh, maybe.
Because the 40, he just plays Giga Gaga Gigo, I think. And the battle guards.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.
Anyhow, beginning of the week pack. Do you remember what you got?
I do not, but it was another, like, just 3 rares that I didn't need.
So you're due, right? You're due your SR.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe either I missed it or I'm due soon. I don't remember how long this event's going, but I get one. So we'll see.
Tomorrow's the last one.
Okay. Well, hopefully it's a good SR. If not, it was probably like a Kuribo or something. I just forgot.
I actually got my second Versago the Destroyer, which is a Kaiba level up card, I believe. So they gave you one of those. And the funny thing about Versago the Destroyer, it's a pretty edgy card. It's got a cool name. It's got 1100 attack and it's a fusion substitute. This is a destroyer who only serves to help fuse something.
Yes. The destroyed is more accurate. Versago or whatever.
Versago the helper.
Yeah. Huh. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know that they gave those cards, like level up cards.
I didn't either. We'll have to update these show notes to say it was a highly memorable thing for Green Ranger.
Alright, so we're entering the Duel School and a new segment here. It's not really the school, but it's more like passing notes. The Duel Assessment Mailbag. We're gonna answer some questions submitted by our listeners and followers. Obviously, bigger podcasts do this for an entire episode, but given what we are going to answer every single question that was submitted to us. So thanks for everyone for submitting the questions via Twitter. All right. So Duel Puzzles sent us 2 questions. First one is, what is your favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card? Justify your answer. Why don't you go first?
All right. Well, I always loved the Blackluster Soldier, the real one, the one that's not in Duel Links, which is Envoy of the Beginning. It was the card that my IRL deck that I spent all my money on, and then which swiftly thereafter got gutted by bans/restrictions. That deck was centered around Blackluster Soldier, and the card has everything that I love in it. It's got a big body, a splashy effect, a little bit of a deck building challenge, but not so much that it's like crazy. And all those things are just fun to me. I love all those aspects of cards. Every aspect, it's got the classic Magic, I forget what they're called, psychogenics, I think, where it's the Timmy, Johnny, and Spike. It hits all three of those for me. And the deck was just good. I guess that's the Spike part. The deck was good, and winning's fun too. So I enjoyed everything about that card.
Yeah, its ability is kind of like the Twilight one we have, where it's like, well, it's one light and one dark. It's not the same number, I guess. Banish that target face up, and then it has a second ability where it attacks multiple times.
Right, yeah. So the card was just super powerful because it was pretty easy to get one light and one dark into your graveyard, and that's all you needed for this, and it didn't, like you said, need it to match up. So if you just had two lights and one dark, or vice versa, that worked out too. And 3,000 attack, I forget the defense, but okay defense, for a guy that you're essentially getting out for free, and then you just get to control the board through. This is another one of those decks that was kind of like a aggro control type thing, where you would use whichever of his effects made more sense, so that over time you gained this card advantage because one of your cards was killing multiples of theirs, and also was your finisher because he had 3,000 attack. And just a great card, fun deck that I loved playing for that 1 week that I got to play it until it got just destroyed, and I was disheartened and gave up the game.
Did you ever sell it back, or did you keep it?
I kept it because it wasn't worth very much at all. After I spent like way too much money of my allowance money and whatever on that whole deck. I forget how much it was, but it was like hundreds of dollars for that deck. And then afterwards, several of the key cards were either banned or restricted. I forget exactly when this was, so someone would have to piece together exactly what the bans and restrictions were. But it was like devastating to the deck. The deck was pretty much gone. And so these cards, some of them you can only run one copy now. So the value of the card immediately slashed by at least a third, and then, or by 2/3, because you could run one instead of three. And then also, since the whole deck was weaker, the value went down even further because just no one even wanted the one. So it was just, it was a massacre.
Yeah, I'm looking at the thing. It says unlimited right now. I don't know when it was lifted. Invasion of Chaos Ultra Rare. I assume that's the one you had.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's like worth like $10 now. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. It was like 50 or something at the time.
I'll talk about my cards.
Yeah. Let's go back to the happy and the original question. What about what's your favorite card?
I don't have one favorite card. I know I mentioned I liked Gravity Bind, but I realized that I'll be horrible in Duel Links, so it was a card that prevented all 4 stars and above from attacking, I believe that was its ability. So that was card. Necro Valley I always liked from the time I opened it, because it seemed like it had a revolutionary ability of, ending the graveyard for your opponent. Seemed pretty OP at the time. Unfortunately, I didn't get to use it on anyone. And certain cards that target card names was something that was really cool to me as well. There's cards like Prohibition and Cloak and Dagger where you declare a card's name, and then your opponent is restricted from playing it, which kind of has like a mind game aspect that you don't see in other games. It seemed really cool.
Yeah.
There's also a card called Convulsion of Nature. I don't know if you're familiar with that card.
No.
So it's basically both players flip their decks upside down so that the last card is face up, and then you duel like that. It's like both people have Aroma strategy on or something.
I like that. That's a fun one.
That's very meme.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be. I guess, I don't know. I like it.
Yeah. I wonder if that card will ever get to Duel Links.
Seems unlikely, since we have, like you said, Aroma strategy and whatnot, but I could see something like that getting into Hearthstone at some point.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go on
Wait,
to the
no,
next question.
Hearthstone, you can't see the card, right? Because it's sideways, right? The deck. If I'm
Yeah,
thinking
they would
about it.
have to do something to change it, but I do think there's space for them to explore with like having a
Design
top card
space.
for your
Design space for the deck.
yeah.
All right, Duel Puzzles. The second question: is there anything you would like to be introduced to Duel Links to make the game more attractive? I'll go with my answer because it's more superficial. It's a very common request on Reddit, but skins and outfits for the characters. In Yu-Gi-Oh, you saw characters wear different outfits during certain arcs, so it would be nice to see them like not wearing school uniforms or something. And obviously, every game that's really popular, they have a big market for skins, so it could just be like a pay optional thing that people who don't feel like paying don't really care about, or if they want to make money, it will convince them to buy a skin they really like. So it's just some kind of customization thing.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those things that it seems like it's kind of a win-win where the company obviously if they make good skins that people want and whatnot, they're making money off of it. And the people who want them get to buy these skins, and obviously they think it's worth it if they're buying it. And then people like me who don't care at all, just it doesn't affect us. So
Right.
it only very slightly does in that it means they're prioritizing some other stuff over other stuff that we might want. But for the most part, it's like sure, whatever, add more skins. I don't care. Do your
Would
thing.
you like it? Would you like it if Joey had the dog costume skin? Because he had to wear a dog costume for an episode.
I do remember that, but I would never pay for just a skin. Like even if it's like the dopest skin, I'm almost certain I wouldn't pay for it.
Okay.
In Hearthstone, they did one where they did like you got a cool skin, and it was the proceeds were donated to charity, and I was still like, nah. so
That was Khadgar, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's just not for me. But I do totally agree that it is for like there's a big market for it,
Yeah.
and it does seem like a easy way for them to improve the game for those players.
Yep.
All right, so mine, I've had kind of two main requests for this game that I've been harping on for a while. One of them is a better / any form of crafting system for us to get cards outside of just buying packs. And that is for lots of reasons, financial reasons kind of being the easiest one. But the second thing is a tournament mode. And the crafting thing seems a little bit more like a modification of the current system than an addition to the game, so I'm going to go with tournament mode as my answer to the question. Right now, people obviously highlight them every week. They're doing a great job running tournaments with what I consider to be a terrible system for doing so. The game gives almost no support to it at all. In-game, so if you want to be in a tournament, you have to coordinate through like discords and stuff, and you have to set up these not very good dueling rooms and then the organizer has to spectate so that they can cast, and it would be really nice. And again, this is something that I'm harping on in Hearthstone as well. A tournament system would just be so good for people like me who are like, casual competitive. I would love to be able to play in a tournament every, like maybe once a month or whatever. I'm not going to be playing in them all the time, but if they're running always or, at set times or whatever, then I can specifically just go into the game, set aside a little bit of time to play in a tournament. It's all in the client, so I don't have to coordinate with people through Discord or worry about someone like cheating me on the brackets or the rules or anything like that. And it relieves so much stress on the process. It's one of those like exit points for some players where there just aren't as many tournament players because some players just don't want to deal with all the headache of trying to just get into the tournament, not even trying to win it, but just trying to play in the tournament. And I just think it's such a missed opportunity to not have a just any sort of functional tournament mode within the client, all in the game.
Yeah. I played in, what was it? What's the other one? DLPT Weekly?
Mm-hmm.
And I played against two people, Renzo and Kaito, I believe. And I was checking on Discord for things. We were chatting on Smash.gg who should open the duel room, I remember. I think I opened it one time for Renzo, and then Kaito opened it for me. And it was just this communication aspect. It's like, what was the ID number for the room? Is the room set up? And if there's like a language barrier, things could get messed up.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And there was like a dropout. Like Kaito left after I beat him to tech his deck, to side deck, and I had to wait for him to come back. There was like a timer. It could have gone wrong many different ways, and it's not unusual to hear of problems here in tournaments because there are so many steps. Each step someone could mess up, and the whole thing gets delayed.
Yeah. Yep. There's lots of opportunities for things to go wrong. Either innocently or because people are trying to abuse the flawed system, and it's just an in-game system would do a lot to relieve that. It would also do a lot to help us establish like what what Duel Links esports should look like. Because we were just having this discussion earlier in the episode about how we don't know really what the format of Duel Links esports is. We don't even know exactly how many decks you're supposed to bring, if you're supposed to have a sideboard or not, any of those things. And if you had an in-game tournament mode that either you can just set up however size you want to do it, 8-mans or 32, 64 on your own and just have them run when they get full, or if you want to have scheduled events, either way would work for me. But you would obviously have it so that they could choose like which format they wanted to go into, and then, oh, these are the 3 options, or this is the only format, or whatever. And then you would know, like, this is the official Duel Links structure. This is how you play competitive esports Duel Links. And I think that clarity would be another benefit of doing it.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is pretty good at writing a lot of stuff, like rule books. They come out with like a new rule book every certain time. So it'll be nice to see one for this format, I guess.
Yeah.
Alright, Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Talk, aka Doug Damadul, asked, what are your thoughts on the pacing of PvP duels compared to how the game was a year ago? So, to go back a year ago, luckily we did this podcast for more than a year, so I went back to episode 10, which was about this time last year, and some of the decks we mentioned were, like, these were some of the tournament decks. They weren't even Duel Links meta. I don't think Duel Links meta was fully established. It was like Reddit tournaments. Relinquished, Kaiba Man, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Venus, Atmosphere, Taya Burn, Harpies, Clown Control, Desert Twister, and Victory Viper. Victory Viper actually won 4th place, if you can believe that. And World, that it was somewhere back then. Switcheroo was almost the skill used for every like Relinquished deck and some other decks. It just got nerfed. So, I'd say things were a lot slower, obviously. We're in the one-turn kill meta, so things are too fast. So, it was a bit slow. And this was also before Red Eye Zombie and Cyber Angels, which were kind of the defining point of what a really good deck is. And these kind of ruled for months in 2017 into 2018. Also, there were no cards like Super Rush, Headlong, and Wolf D. So, the back row wasn't fully defined. I remember back then, not everyone even ran Econ. I think Econ became a staple when Cyber Angels came out. So, it was amorphous. It was like fun nostalgia. That's how I can describe back then.
Yeah, I do think that there are some benefits, even outside of just the gameplay, to the old structure, because the old structure leaned much more heavily on the nostalgia aspect of the game, whereas now the game seems to be going more and more towards just an alternative form of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And I assume that these cards and stuff are still relevant to the show, and that for some people the nostalgia factor is much more prolonged because they've played with a lot more of these cards than I have, or they've been featured on the show much more than I have, but there was something like so pure about running harpies as Mai. Like, this is what the show, this is like what the character is, and we don't have that anymore because harpies aren't nearly good enough to compete with what we can do now. So I did think that was fun. I definitely agree with your assessment. Everything was a lot slower back then. I do think the OTK meta is a bit of an issue. It makes a lot of games feel inconsequential because it sometimes feels like it just comes down to who drew the better starting hand.
Yeah.
And then, based on how those various things line up, it's like you either win or you lose on the first 2 turns and you can't do anything about it. And that doesn't feel good. I do think it'd be better if games were to take maybe a few more turns. You don't want a super slow control meta either. A lot of people online always cry about how they want a control meta, but that would be terrible if every game took like 20 minutes. You don't want that either. But just a few turns, so that you can feel like you actually had a chance in every game, and there's a little bit of back and forth, a little bit more monster trading like there used to be. I always think that that's a fun aspect of these games. And I'm hopeful that maybe the 5,000 life point thing will be just enough to kind of push it slightly back into that little bit slower. Obviously, we're never going back to the time when we were running Relinquished and Harpies and Clown Control and Victory Viper, but I do think that we can get kind of some of that feel back by just slowing the game down a little bit, and I do think that this might be the way to do that. We have to make changes like this to make those slowdowns happen because we don't have rotations. So it's either big rule changes like this, or we just decide to randomly ban a bunch of the best cards, or maybe we can print some really good counter cards, but those usually kind of are best suited for sideboards, so they don't work as well just as counters for the regular PvP play. And so there's not a ton of ways to slow the game down and go back to where we were and undo what we did. But I do think that this might be a good way to do that.
Yep. And our last question, Earth Shatterer Hearthstone. Are there any ways you can bluff your opponent? If so, what tips do you guys have? So, I think the main bluffs revolve around the back row. The set cards, you go from center, right, left. That's the order if you're putting 3 cards down. I mentioned before, I think last episode, I like putting in the most disposable back row first. Something that can be used when they target it, like Econ, or when I was playing Gear G, as a common one was Pulse Mines, because it works for the whole turn. And the on-off toggle works for bluffing too. Something like Wall of D is a card that only works during your opponent's battle phase, so if I'm going to take a hit and want to draw a monster, I would just turn it off so there's no delay to say I have a Wall of D, and I would save it up for when they have 2 or 3 monsters on the board. Bluffing attacks. So enter the battle phase even if you're not planning to attack, because then you can catch them on a delay, and that kind of helps you figure out what their back row is. You try to look for a pause. And finally, if you're playing a deck that doesn't typically have back row, you can just put a face-down set when you're not going to use that card. Like Grass is Greener, or if you're playing Cyber Angels and you want to summon a Cyber Angel but you have Hymn of Light, I would set the Hymn of Light. I don't know if that's a good play or not, but things like that to put useless spells down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. Those are good ones. Also, it's not directly a response to the question, but I think that's a really good point of looking for their pauses. That's one of the best ways that you can read, especially kind of towards the middle of the ladder, where players tend to be playing meta decks, so you have a pretty good idea of what they're running, but they're not the best players, so they won't do things like turn the toggle on and off, or they won't be as quick to know what they want to do with their play. So they might actually sit there and think about it for a while, so it'll be a very noticeable pause. That's when you can make your best reads on what they have, because you know, like, oh, okay, if it's pausing at this point at my draw phase, then it can't be, like you said, Wall of D is an obvious one, so maybe it has to be this other thing, or it's pausing at this point when I don't have any monsters out, so it can't be an econ. Those types of things. To add to your other tips as for specifically bluffing, I think you should always have an extra deck of like 3 to 5 cards, so that your opponent never knows for sure what you're running until kind of the game starts. And for some decks, this is less useful because it's just really obvious from your first turn what you're doing, or even from your skill what you're doing. Like when I was running Sea Stealth Attack, I didn't bother with this because in that meta a couple months back, if you started the game with Yuumi on the field, then you were one of 2 decks, and it was pretty clear, and neither of them ran any polymerization effects or anything like that. So it has variable validity, I guess. Sometimes it's a lot better of a bluff than others, but for some decks, especially if your decks tend to be like you don't have as much of a refined collection or something like that, and you're just playing kind of the best cards you can play, then for sure it works the strongest in those decks, because those what has been deemed recently Unga Bunga decks, you don't really have a set thing for your opponent to expect anything from you anyway, so you can kind of get away with the clever deck building and the bluffs that come with it as well. The other thing, which isn't so much a bluff but a psychological game of sorts, is that I noticed that when people are on the ranked floor or on a losing streak, or if you before the match you look and they just do not have a lot of prior PvP experience, prior wins, like they tend to be just a bronze every year or every month, or they have some like blank spots in between, then sometimes you can just bluff them or demoralize them or whatever by just going really hard on like a turn 1 or a key swing turn or something like that, and just kind of overwhelming them, either by pretending you have lethal or like setting up for a lethal, or just by like doing a bunch of things. And sometimes people will just concede or misplay based on tilt, if they're on that losing streak, or lack of experience for those people who haven't played too many, or just their frustration or demoralization. So anyway, whatever the reason is, sometimes I'll just go all in on a play, even if I'm normally a little bit more conservative with my plays, because I know that there's this chance that they just might quit because they see me doing it. One of the best decks for this that I ever had was in the Cyber Angels meta. I would just start like doing a bunch of stuff with my Cyber Angels, and eventually people would be like, oh, he must have lethal because he has Cyber Angels always has lethal. And so
right.
Even if you don't exactly have lethal, if you're off by a little bit, you can kind of get them to think it, and then they'll quit or misplay or something. And the same with like if you set up a bunch of stuff and then you just set a couple of cards, and even though you wouldn't normally set them, sometimes they'll think that you have the protection to set up your win for the next turn. So those are my additional tips on top of the really good ones that you gave.
I'm going to add something to this extra deck. I think the best ones in the competitive ladder is if you're playing Restart, because you're going to say, I'm playing Masked Heroes. Because Masked Heroes always have 5 in the extra deck. So if you're playing Restart, which is probably the most common skill now, almost like a lot of decks run Restart, you would just stick 5 in even if you're not playing Masked Heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Alright. So we have emptied out our mailbag of 4 questions. We may do this again in the future. It was fun. It was fun answering these questions.
Oh, yeah, we love it. This time we asked for questions because it was actually last week. We thought we were going to be low on content. We ended up being a little low on content this week, so it ended up working out just fine. But send in questions like all the time. You don't have to wait for us to ask them. We love to hear from you guys. We love to answer your questions. Hopefully you like to hear our answers. So feel free to do that whenever.
Yep. Alright, upcoming news. Bonus Duelists, end of boosted Duel Orbs. This is happening a month from today, June 26, 2018. We talked about Vagrants last week. They're actually called bonus duelists, and they have 30 charges of a standard duelist. So it's not like you're getting a ton of experience up front, but they're just a standard duelist. You could duel 30 times. They're not going to disappear, and they have a countdown based on how many charges they have. And this was precipitated by boosted duel orbs running down the clock during maintenance periods.
That's good. I agree. That's better that way.
And we don't know if the bonus duelist is one of the regular standard duelists or if it is a special character. We don't know anything about that yet.
Shall see.
They're just gonna come up like with Jay with like blonde hair or something. It's like a new guy.
Right. Color swapped or palette swapped Jay.
Yeah. All right. Official news: Duel Links World Championship begins in a couple days. I think the 28th. So Monday. Regular duel-a-thon early June. Roaming Zane early June. Tag Duel Tournament GX early June. These are the new ones here. Mid-June there's going to be a DD Tower Dark Dimension. And we get to duel yugioh, I believe. I don't think we get to acquire her yet. But she was teased a while ago in a cutscene and we didn't see her since. So there you go. Late June, Jesse Anderson's to the gate. So his Crystal Beast event officially ends. Late June, new team event. That's all they say about it. And we get to obtain Esperoba. At this pace, it seems like we get one a month. Almost. Like one legendary duelist a month, almost.
Mm-hmm.
And early June, you get Cyrus, if you don't have him from before.
Yeah. So, some good stuff coming up. I forgot that the World Champs begins before the end of the month, this month. So you definitely want to get to your goals if you can before then. It gives me very little time to try to hit that King of Games, but I'll do what I can.
Yeah, I don't know if I will. We'll see. I just need to not get tilted by the losses.
Yeah, you just have to sit down and get in some games to get the revs up and hopefully make them good games where you get a little lucky and don't get too tilted when you don't get lucky.
Yep, we shall see.
Yeah.
Alright, so that's it for us this week. Thanks for listening. Listen and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Overcast, and YouTube. Check out the podcast and more at our website, theduelassessment.wordpress.com. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com/theduelassessment. If you want to help support our work, patreon.com/duel_assessment. Email us any questions at theduelassessment@gmail.com, or you can find us on Twitter, duel_assessment. Duel_assessment. Me at Green Ranger HS, DuckTech at HS DuckTech.
Yep, sounds good. See you guys next time.
See ya.